Further debate? The Minister for Children and Youth Services.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and I will be sharing my time with my colleague, the member from Thunder Bay, Atikokan, on this issue. So thank you. It's my pleasure to rise today to speak to this very important bill, Bill 165, the Fair Minimum Wage Act. My chair. I want to start by congratulating my colleague, the Minister of Labour, for his hard work in bringing this forward. It's an important step forward for Ontario's minimum wage earners and a crucial part of our government's plan to help people in their everyday lives. Bill 165 takes the politics out of deciding the minimum wage by tying future increases to the rate of inflation. It's important to note that this was the recommendation in the consensus report put forward by the Minimum Wage Advisory Panel. The panel, as you know, Madam Speaker, included representatives from business, labor, community, and anti-poverty groups. They traveled across the province to get advice and feedback. They heard about the importance of the minimum wage and the need to ensure a fair, predictable, and transparent approach to setting it. We listened to the panel's advice, and the Minister of Labour brought forward Bill 165. I believe that this is a fair and balanced approach that provides predictability to businesses. At the same time, we're ensuring that those earning a minimum wage will not see their wages fall behind the cost of living. Since 2003, our government has increased the minimum wage 7 times, which is equivalent to a 60% increase. We're helping families because for years, the previous government, currently the opposition, froze the minimum wage. As the cost of living increased, hardworking Ontarians fell further and further behind. Since 2003, we've stood up for hardworking families and raised the minimum wage from $6.85 to $10.25. And on June 1st, we will be raising it again to $11. This will help Ontario families, like we did in 2008 when we introduced the province's first poverty reduction strategy. Through it, we created the Ontario Children's Benefit, which this year will increase to $1,310 per child. The benefit is currently helping over 1 million children in 530,000 middle-class and low-income families. We introduced full-day kindergarten to save parents money on childcare costs and give almost 184,000 kids a stronger start in life. And we implemented a student nutrition program, which ensures that 700,000 children across the province don't go to school hungry. Our first poverty reduction strategies made a difference. Over 47,000 children and their families have been lifted out of poverty, and an additional 61,000 children were prevented from falling into poverty because they had the supports they needed. We also saw very encouraging signs from the Survey of Labour and Income Dynamics. Ontario continues to have one of the lowest low-income rates in the country. Now, what does that mean? The low-income measure measures the number and percent of children living in households earning less than 50% of the median income. After Alberta and Saskatchewan, as a percentage of our total population, Ontario has the fewest number of people living in poverty. We achieved this by making child poverty the focus of our initial strategy and by making reasonable increases to the minimum wage. But we know there's more work to be done, which is why, Madam Speaker, our next 5-year strategy is under development. On its own, raising the minimum wage does not alleviate poverty. Poverty is a complex issue that requires a holistic approach, one that addresses education, job opportunities, health care, and affordable housing. Our government has taken that approach, and we've seen the positive impact it's had in Ontario. By investing in people and partnering with industry to create jobs, we give people the opportunity to reach their full potential. I can see the importance of these investments when I'm back home and I look across the river. Windsor and Detroit have similar type economies and are geographically alike. And while I see my community benefiting from our government support, our neighbors across the river continue to struggle. Our government uploaded social services from municipalities, and Windsor's been able to pay down their debt and freeze taxes for the past 6 years. At the same time, Detroit has had to declare bankruptcy. Instead of slashing spending, our government invests in education, healthcare, and infrastructure. We're investing in people to develop their skills, keep them strong, and help them find meaningful employment. We've seen graduation rates go up, hospital wait times go down, and tens of thousands of jobs created thanks to our investments. Our government has fostered an environment that supports business, an environment that encourages prosperity. We've cut corporate taxes, we worked collaboratively with unions, and made reasonable increases to minimum wage. Michigan's tax rate is higher than Ontario's, and they're now a right to work for less state. Their minimum wage is $7.40, while our current rate is $10.25. So the question is, does having a lower minimum wage and becoming a right to work jurisdiction create more jobs? Clearly the answer is no. Windsor's unemployment rate is 7%. Detroit's unemployment rate is 14%. Ontario's unemployment rate is lower than Michigan's. It's quite clear, Tea Party style policies just don't work. That's what the party opposite advocates for. Attacking unions and keeping wages low. That doesn't create more jobs. Their policies would drive away jobs, and that's exactly what they did a couple weeks ago with Chrysler. We don't live in an economics textbook or in a theory world. We live in the real world. And in the real world, governments have a responsibility to partner with industry to create jobs. If Ontario doesn't step forward, some other jurisdiction will. We can't pretend that other jurisdictions won't offer grants and tax breaks to steal companies out of Ontario. The recklessness of the party opposite and their leader is astounding. They pat themselves on the back when they drive away business, while we continue to build a strong economy for today, and tomorrow they would have Ontario move backwards in time. But at least they've laid out their positions. They've reached deep into the Tea Party playbook and said to the people of Ontario, this is what we stand for. The NDP's silence, on the other hand, is deafening, and that's dangerous for the future of our province. We reached our position on the minimum wage by taking an evidence-based approach. We took the rate of inflation since we last raised the minimum wage and raised the rate to $11. What was the NDP position? Well, at first they didn't have one. It was disappointing that neither of the opposition parties made a submission to the panel, nor did they speak up on the issue in this chamber. When the NDP finally took a position on the minimum wage, after our leadership, it was an obvious attempt to score political points. We're taking the politics out of minimum wage for that very reason. Our position was developed in consultation with business, labor, anti-poverty advocates, and youth. We're taking an evidence-based approach grounded in sound policy. Because unlike the NDP, we're not thinking about the sound bites of today. We're thinking about the province we want to see tomorrow. And in that province, minimum wage will keep up with the cost of living. And businesses will have a fair and predictable way of determining future wages. I'd like to thank the advisory panel for all their hard work and bringing forward their recommendations. I'd like to give special thanks to Adam Vasey, the Director of Pathway to Potential in Windsor, for his work on the panel and for all his efforts at reducing poverty in Windsor. Tying the minimum wage to inflation is an important step that ensures workers are protected and businesses have predictability. I urge all members of this House to support this bill. Thank you, Madam Speaker.